Thank you very much. And first of all, respected Swamiji, organizers of the Vishnu Mohan Foundation, and distinguished guests. I just want to say that I'm no longer at Asian University for Women. I'm now heading KREA University, which is a liberal arts university, pretty new, quite close to Chennai, but located in the state of Andhra Pradesh. But I just want to say how sorry I am not to be able to join you in person today, but it's a real privilege to be invited to speak on the theme of peace and justice. Honestly, after listening to all the scholars and experts yesterday and today, I do feel unqualified to speak among so many knowledgeable people. I'm no lawyer, I'm no philosopher, not least security expert, who our colleague just now so eloquently spoke about what's happening on the ground. My own area of expertise is in politics, more specifically in urban governance. I have worked extensively on public policy issues and done my share of public service. In fact, those who know me well will tell you I'm a very practical person, someone who thinks realistically, speaks directly, and focuses on getting things done. So it's hard to imagine that someone like me can theorize on how justice is perceived, delivered, and experienced, and devise a just framework for societal and individual peace. Of course, with my experience and background, I could approach justice not as a philosophical concept, but as something tangible and actionable. Its manifestation in how policies are implemented, how urban spaces are governed, how citizens experience fairness in their daily lives, or how issues of accessibility to services can contribute to or detract from societal peace, whether it's education, healthcare, or public safety. But I'm here today at Swamiji's behest as someone with several decades of experience in academic leadership and currently leading, as I said, a relatively new higher education institution, KREA University. I've therefore chosen to focus my presentation on the role of higher education in building peace and justice through promoting critical thinking and civic engagement. So a very practitioner's view, not like, as I said, not like the experts you've just heard, whether they're cultural historians or philosophers. So it's going to be a very practitioner's view of how we can, how these values are incorporated both in the curriculum and what we do with students. I hope this will be particularly relevant to students who are there today. And I must apologize for not putting up slides. I now realize it will have been a much more focused presentation had I done so. But with 15 minutes, I thought I didn't feel able to prepare some slides. So my apologies. Now, in his letter from Birmingham jail, Martin Luther King called for a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. His conceptual framing of peace as positive was likely influenced by a phrase from 1931 Nobel Peace Prize winner Jane Addams, for whom peace could no longer merely be absence of war. Today, the question is, what would it mean to imagine a world in which peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice? From my vantage point of view, here's my response. When teachers and students come together for the common good, we create the conditions for peace and justice in a turbulent world. Even in times such as ours, the existence of the university serves as a reminder of the possibility of both. Goal 16 of the UN's Sustainable Development Charter calls for promoting peaceful and inclusive societies, providing access to justice for all, and building effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Educational institutions play a crucial role in fostering peace and justice. They equip students with the skills essential for building peaceful and resilient communities, Most importantly, they promote critical thinking, empathy and understanding while addressing inequalities and providing access to justice for all. Let's begin with critical thinking. Edward Glaser, an American scholar, commented in 1941, he was deeply influenced by John Dewey, who in 1915 wrote a lot on critical thinking, came to be called the father of critical thinking in Western philosophy. Glaser commented, critical thinking calls for examining any belief or knowledge in the light of the evidence that supports it. An attitude of being disposed in a thoughtful way, the problems and subjects that come within the range of one's experiences. Knowledge of the method of logical inquiry and reasoning, and to reconstruct one's patterns of beliefs based on wider experience. Were we to revisit Glaser's postulation, he wrote in An Experiment in the Development of Critical Thinking, if we were to revisit what he said today, I wonder if the skills he so meticulously defines are a relic of the past, an antiquated notion applicable only to those who lived in the pre-internet days. Focused attention of the kind critical thinking, I believe, demands seems impossible to achieve in the age of distraction, when, I would say, mindless scrolling, and forgive me for saying that, on smartphones or Google is the order of the day. I'm sorry if by saying this, I am taking a slightly diametrically opposite view to Sri Keshavji, whom we've just heard. It's something that in my mind is hard to come together. Critical thinking, and depending on ChatGPT or any other AI tool. And yet, every university that exists today and every discipline it houses explicitly or implicitly recognizes critical thinking as essential to the cultivation and advancement of knowledge. We need to think critically, think deep, prepare for life's uncertainties, build resilience in individuals, communities, and nations, and safeguard the world in which we live. Critical thinking involves a vital component, metacognitive awareness, or thinking about thinking. Not so much about what to think, but how to think. Why we think the way we think. I'm pleased to say we at KREA, which is a liberal arts institution, encourage this kind of student-centered learning, problem-posing, lateral thinking-based model of education through what we call interwoven learning, by which students are taught to transcend boundaries which are porous and to think big. Which brings me to the second point. Education institutions foster empathy and understanding, crucial for building bridges across differences and resolving conflicts peacefully. For this, it's essential to see students as a whole human beings rather than as lifeless sponges soaking up the contents of courses. In the post-pandemic climate, the mental health and well-being of the young is in jeopardy. Those from beleaguered populations and war zones experience trauma, trans and intergenerational. The climate crisis is adversely impacting the well-being of all. We must learn to practice pedagogy that emphasizes social and emotional learning as much as intellectual, EQ as much as IQ. We could apply the same pedagogy to ourselves, showing students self-care and care for the other, rather than telling them to practice either or both. Again, it's something that our distinguished speakers have touched upon in their presentations. Education institutions are forever exploring effective ways to implement collaborative and peer learning, so that students learn to empathize, work with one another, and through debates and controversies to arrive at shared understandings. By teaching students to connect the dots across perspectives and ideological positions, we can cultivate both cognitive and affective empathy, genuine understanding, and over time develop communitarian models of peace and justice that simultaneously involve care for the individual and the planet. Finally, I think educational institutions play a vital role in addressing systemic inequalities and promoting social justice by providing access to quality education for all, regardless of background or circumstances. By implementing inclusive policies and practices, educational institutions can foster an environment where every student has the opportunity to succeed, irrespective of their socioeconomic status, race, or personal circumstances. And here I'd like to just mention the Asian University for Women, which I headed, based in Chittagong in Bangladesh, where I was brought from the UK to build that institution. It was only about 4 years old when I went there. With my 35 years of experience and the Deputy Vice Chancellor at University of London, they felt I could contribute to it. It was an experiment it was a human project, I would say, specifically dedicated for women from very underserved communities in Asia and in the whole of Asia. Of course, we got from students from Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Afghanistan was the second largest cohort. And when I joined, we had students only from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Delhi, India, and Nepal. And by the time I left, we had students from 19 different countries, including Myanmar, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Timor-Leste. And it was a brilliant space where students who came with absolutely no English, absolutely, from very, very marginalized communities, came together, spent 5 years, and they're all in positions of very good jobs, ranging from UN Women, World Bank in the United Nations to Deloitte in Tokyo, or spread all over the world. They were taught, the way we recruited them was giving them very hypothetical situations and examining their attitudes to empathy, to social justice, communication, team learning, and support for good causes. And I can tell you that kind of admissions probably ranked much better than simply admitting students through their examinations results in mathematics, English, or other forms of aptitude test. A very successful project, which was an eye-opener. And I would like to advise, recommend students in the audience, if you have a moment, go to the website and have a look at what the university does. In terms of holistic admissions, socioeconomic status, race, or personal circumstances, these are all the financial support, outreach programs, inclusive curriculum, community engagement. These are all some of the mechanisms universities should and could use to embrace diversity and promote inclusivity. But this is not as straightforward as it appears. And building an educational institution that's not only forward-thinking, but forward-doing in this respect can be a huge challenge. And it's not as easy as it sounds, but I think it's something that all universities, both in India and globally, are doing in one way or the other to promote access to all communities, students from all communities, all backgrounds, as well as providing quality education. Crucially, however, educational institutions have to fundamentally think about teaching peace and justice. There are institutions that do an extraordinary job in addressing peace, justice, inclusivity, and critical thinking, while tackling issues of inequality and conflict resolution. Some examples come to mind. The University for Peace, established by the United Nations in Costa Rica, is a unique institution offering graduate-level programs that aim to promote a culture of peace and contribute to global conflict resolution. The university's program calls for global cooperation and dialogue that engage students in peace research, mediation techniques, and peace policy advocacy. Their graduates are involved in international organizations, peacekeeping missions, and development projects, actively contributing to peaceful and inclusive societies worldwide. Likewise, the African Leadership Academy in South Africa was established to develop young leaders who are committed to tackling the continent's most pressing issues, including social justice, inequality, and governance. The Academy aims to train the next generation of leaders by focusing on entrepreneurial thinking, leadership development, and civic engagement. Similarly, we find a number of restorative justice programs in other parts of the world, New Zealand, Rwanda, Colombia, Sweden, Finland, just to name a few, which are designed to foster conflict resolution and promote a culture of peace and inclusion. The Rwandan government, for example, prioritizes education as a tool for building a cohesive and peaceful society. Peace and reconciliation education is integrated into their education system to foster understanding, tolerance, and mutual respect among young people from diverse ethnic backgrounds. Now, India obviously has a very rich tradition of integrating peace and justice education in its educational framework, drawing from diverse religious philosophies and cultural practices that emphasize nonviolence, tolerance, and social harmony. I'll not repeat many of the examples that our distinguished scholars and speakers just gave, whether from Mahabharata, Upanishads, or other texts. But on the ground, the National Education Policy of 2020 reinforces our commitment by promoting value-based and experiential learning, aiming to foster critical thinking and cultural understanding. The liberal arts model for university education, as we have at our university at KREA, with its unique curriculum, does just that. It affords the flexibility to incorporate peace and justice education across all our programs. Our foundation courses on ethics, on reasoning, taken by every student in the university, inaugurates peace and justice considerations and promotes rich dialogue, both theoretical and applied. The curriculum in every discipline, we have about 14 majors ranging from physics, chemistry, mathematics to philosophy, politics, sociology, social studies. So the curriculum in each of these disciplines, every major, every minor, can return to these questions and conversations in the remaining years of a student's education at KREA over a 4-year period. So to sum up, educational institutions provide a platform for change. They can engage with local communities to address social problems and promote peace and justice initiatives. Civic engagement, as we call it. Civic engagement plays a vital peace-building role by protecting lives and properties, inculcating a sense of shared responsibility and accountability, providing a platform for advocacy for the vulnerable groups, enabling people to get to know each other, thereby building a culture of peace, providing a space for mediation, and enabling the delivery of the much-needed conflict and post-conflict services such as trauma healing, humanitarian assistance, among others. But none of this, I must say, is without challenges. Ideological differences, political opposition, and lack of resources are some of the major obstacles to implementing peace-focused education. And I speak from my experience of leading university here. But yet higher education's role in peace and justice can hardly be disputed, as we've seen through encouraging ethical leadership, critical thinking, and community involvement. Educational institutions can help create a more resilient and just world. Thank you.